Today, our topic is on building resilience and creating a space for curiosity with Elizabeth Abiade. Elizabeth is the founder of social enterprise Bridge, Build, Aspire, which aims to bridge gaps within the community through empowering young people with knowledge. She is a qualified social worker, having completed Approach Social Work. So, Elizabeth, I'll hand over to you for today's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ross. Thank you for the opportunity as well to the fellowship. I'm really grateful. Completing approach to social work in 2020 at the peak of COVID was really hard, but it was a really enjoyable experience. So I'm really glad to be given back. So today's topic is about building resilience and creating a space for curiosity. And one of the I guess, when I was kind of brainstorming and thinking about what topic that I want to do, I think it's so easy to kind of give information, theories, but I felt like it was really important for me to do a session that acknowledges the context in which we're working, the stress, the pressure, the challenge, but also the amazing space, the amazing work that we're able to do with families. And, as I've reflected on my journey and my practice and the social worker that I want to continue to be, I've realized that, resilience is critical. And, being someone that is curious is also critical. And to be a social worker that is curious, you do need to kind of have a layer of resilience. So that's what this topic is about. It's just to kind of encourage social workers, provide key tips that would help you improve your practice, but just also help you as a person. Because I feel like behind every social worker is a human being who's also kind of navigating different aspects of life, whilst also helping other families navigate their lives. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So what really kind of helped me get to this thinking was, learning family systems theory, which is, I think, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the program, the systemic approach. And, I was just reflecting about my practice and what system am I in. And I know when I initially started Frontline, I noticed that there were things that I would do that would actually inhibit my practice being better. So, for example, maybe not taking annual leave or requesting for annual leave quite late and then feeling quite overwhelmed and feeling resentful or not being able to communicate to my manager. All of these emotions and all of these pressures can affect our ability to kind of bounce back and respond to the different changes and demands that are required in our social work journey. So this session really, I feel like is kind of letting you into my mind and how I think and how being someone who is reflective has improved my practice. And, I'm someone who's always kind of keen to make sure that I am improving how I work with families and I understand actually my practice improves as I improve as an individual, which is why I think a key part of this session as well is just, improving your personal development as a social worker. So the next slide, why resilience? I think resilience is really, really key. If you're going to be a social worker, or if you're going to work with children, families, I know we have different people from different backgrounds. Resilience is really key. So I'm just going to read this definition, which states emotional resilience in social work is defined as the capacity to manage problems and challenging situations in a manner that prevents them from adversely affecting your well-being or your professional growth. And then professional curiosity is a key term that's used in social work. And it's defined as involves a practitioner's effort to explore, understand what is happening in someone's life rather than make assumptions. And one of the things that I've realized is professional curiosity is key. It's really, really important, especially if you are, completing an assessment, you're working with families. You really need to kind of go into places with an open mind, with the confidence to ask questions. And I found that there are visits maybe where I've gone that I haven't been as curious, maybe because I was just really tired. I felt really burnt out. I haven't really managed my calendar really well, or I haven't really made time for myself. So I think there's definitely different reasons for curiosity. And I wanted to be realistic. Social work is always going to be social work. The context of social work, politics, there's a lot outside of our control. And I think what I wanted this session to really reflect on is what can we control? And we have our own system and there's so many things that we can do. And even when you think about system theories, and even when I work with families, I always say, you know what, it's just that small thing. I remember I was telling a parent, you know what, this child, every single time they do something, you get really angry, you start shouting. And then I noticed the child just doesn't respond. They're so used to that system. So I said, you know what if you maybe ignore her or come back to her another time or go for a walk, just engage with the system differently. What do you think would happen? And I know I visited the family and she was like, you know what, Elizabeth, I did that one thing and I have noticed a change. So what I want you to kind of reflect on in this meeting as well is what's the one thing you can do to kind of shift you away from maybe feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, or anxious. Because I think many times we want the system to change, but I think as social workers, we are really powerful. And just that one little reflection time or, planning your time, planning your calendar better could actually impact your practice. So I have three key stages that I feel that we can put in place that can really help us build our resilience. So the first key thing is implement. One of the key things that I feel that has really helped me as a person, I believe in just having a vision or an overview of what you want to achieve or you want to become. So I'm someone who has like loads of vision boards, moon boards. If you ask me to do something, I always want to kind of have a picture and a goal and a purpose of why I'm doing that. So I know we will have some people here who are about to start their journey into social work. And I think it's really important to just take time out to think about what social worker you want to become. In the strain of social work, I've met different social workers and I personally feel that actually sometimes we drift away and we don't really notice we've drifted away, but because we don't really have maybe it's like a mission statement or a purpose statement. I guess it's different for different people. We don't even realize how far we've drifted. So there are times where I've left visits and I've realized, "Oh, that was a quick visit, or I could have put more into that visit, or, why didn't I really challenge that parent?" And what helps me kind of recalibrate is the vision that I have for my practice. So I think it's really important to always think about what kind of social worker you want to become. And I think Frontline is really good at doing that. Do you want to be a systemic social worker? Do you want to be someone that's trauma informed? Do you want to be a kind social worker? Do you want to be a social worker that's empathetic? Do you want to be a social worker that's non-judgmental? I do think it's important, even as a professional, you might be a teacher. It's really, really important to reflect on what you want to become. And I think what that has done is has helped me set goals. So I know there was a time where I used to kind of put in my calendar different research articles that I wanted to read. And at that time, I was really, really passionate about contextual safeguarding. And I've kind of had created a path of like what I want for my social work journey and what I would like my career to evolve into. So I think these are things that are really important because there will be moments where it's tough. Maybe a parent has like closed the door and told you to go away, or, maybe that week you're struggling with your stats and you just feel like you're not a good social worker. But I think just having a key goal and a key understanding of where you want to become will help. So I know when I started my career in Lambeth, and it was so amazing because it was so diverse. There were leaders who looked like me. So that just always kind of encouraged me. And even when I had tough times, it's like, okay, maybe I can be like Alex, maybe I can be a leader like him. So try and have a visual representation of what you want to do. And then the next part is breaking this into goals, and really thinking about who in the organization can actually help you achieve these goals. So another key thing that I think you need to implement is establishing clear boundaries in your personal life and also in your social work practice. And I think this is really, really, really important. It's important to, especially even before starting your career, and even if you are social worker already, taking some time out, maybe on a Sunday morning when your mind is clear and you're really thinking about what aspects of my life do I want to protect. So I've met social workers maybe who have children and they have a specific day where they want to make sure they're home in time and they can spend time with that child. And the key things about boundaries is it helps you know what you need to protect. So I remember in my calendar, I do kind of prioritize it. So maybe other people can't see it, but as a Christian, waking up in the morning and praying is really important. So that's in my calendar. That's something that I want to protect. For some people, it might be going to the gym. That's something that's really important for me, or going for walks. So be very clear on the boundaries you want to set and why you're setting that. So for example, for me, eating healthy is really important because I realize when I don't eat healthy, I feel heavy. I struggle to kind of concentrate when I'm writing my visit write-ups. So it's just different things that might be relevant to you. So it's up to you to kind of reflect on what's important to you. But it's really important because I find that if we don't set these boundaries, other people set them for us. So one of the key things that I realized that I used to do really poorly was not set my annual leave. Um, I wouldn't set it properly. So I'd realize, oh, I'm burnt out. And then maybe like in 2 weeks' time, ask my manager if I could go off for leave. While some managers might be nice and they might let you off, I had to then you had to kind of plan your meetings quite late, your write-ups, your core groups. So the key thing is try and plan as much as possible. So that's a key boundary for me, making sure I plan my annual leave in time. And for me, I realize at least every quarter, I need at least a week to 2 weeks off. That means also planning your holidays in advance, speaking to family members. Just try not to leave anything last minute. And I guess 4 years into social work, I realized that everything is going to be okay. So it might even be one thing I realized I always used to do my mileage last. I'll do everything in social work first. So I'll do my meetings and my sin reviews. And there was one time I realized actually I could just take time out and do it, and everything's going to be fine. That emergency will still be dealt with, that sin meeting will still be written up. So I would really encourage you to just think about the boundaries you want to set and who you want to set those boundaries with as well. Sometimes we need to set boundaries with family. So actually, I can't commit to this. And I'm going to kind of go into more detail later with a quote from Brene Brown, because I do realize that setting boundaries can be hard. And I think that's why I've shared that it's really important that we're curious about things that we do and why do we do the things that we do. So one of the things that I realized is I can be a bit of a people pleaser. Sometimes I'm afraid to say no because I'm scared of what's going to happen. So learning that and going through that, with therapy and coaches and the right people has enabled me to really set boundaries really well. Another thing is allocating specific times in your calendar. So making sure that it's in your calendar and you're blocking it out. And if it's in your calendar, it's in your calendar. Obviously, emergencies will pop up, but I find that if it's not in my calendar, sometimes I either double book, then I'm more stressed and I'm more anxious, or I just push it to the bottom of the pile. So it's really important to use your calendar, however, whether it's a physical or it's an Outlook, use your calendar. I think I'm at a stage whereby if I don't use my calendar, it's not happening. Another thing that I'll say is designate specific days for certain activities. And I actually do this with visits as well. I try to, as much as possible. Being a social worker, you will have emergencies, but I try to allocate specific days for visits. And I think I found that it's actually started to help me mentally prepare for certain visits. Making sure that my Mondays, Tuesdays are maybe for like admin, and then Wednesdays and Thursdays are for visits, and then Fridays is like an admin day. So try and think about your days. So is there a day where you like to go to the gym? Mondays, is that when you want to go to theatre? Just having this kind of thought pattern just helps you to kind of prioritize yourself and remind yourself that actually these things are important. And as a social worker, you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's really interesting because many times we push away the things that actually make us feel good. So I just think you have to be really resolute. That's the word that I would say. You have to be very resolute about protecting these activities. And if emergencies do come up, one of the things I love about Outlook is you can just drag it. You can kind of drag it to another day. Don't delete it. Just try and find another day to make it work, or another week. And another thing that I will say as well is prioritizing supervision and professional feedback. I think this is really, really important in being resilient, because as social workers and as professionals, we do need to be contained. We do need to kind of let out different emotions. I think one thing that I would always recommend is just having different key people that you can speak to about certain things. The amazing thing about social work I love is you just meet so many amazing people. So build these relationships and have people that you can call on in an emergency, or even if it does need to be a bit planned, so you can just speak to them about how you're feeling. So the next stage is identify. So I think one of the key things that has helped me is routine. I love routine. I love systems. I love things flowing in a particular way because I just find it less stressful. So I've mentioned it already, but set consistent times for reflection and journaling. And I think this is really important because in crisis, especially as social workers, we do deal with a lot of crisis. I think our bodies sometimes are in fight or flight quite a lot because we deal with a lot of risk, we deal with a lot of emergencies, and we also deal with a lot of professionals who have a lot of anxiety and fear. So I would really recommend reflecting and journaling. So I've got like one of my journals here, and a bigger journal, and that's something that really helps me. It's really important to reflect because it enables you to begin to recognize emotions. And like I said, as social workers, we can just be in go, 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 go mode. But I think just taking time out to think, and I know we do this with children, we ask them, how are you feeling? What feelings are coming up for you? And we have our feelings cards, we have our feelings wheels. And I think we also need to get into the mode of doing that for ourselves because the quicker you can identify emotions of stress, the quicker people can actually help you. And I found that sometimes I'm in such an intense season or period that I'm not even really thinking about how I feel. So I think it's important just to pause, if it's every week, reflect, or maybe there's a certain visit that's made you feel a certain type of way. And that really helps. And these emotions, the more curious you are about your emotions, the more able you're actually able to do that with other families. And I think I've written here, acknowledging and protecting this time is essential. Has a failure to do so can affect our interactions with professionals. And I really want to speak to this because, especially in social work, multi-agency practice is really important. Working with different professionals is important. And I realize sometimes I can be quite avoidant. So I kind of hold things in and I just leave it. And I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But as I've matured as a social worker, I realize that these emotions come out. So sometimes these frustrations come out in interactions with professionals. And actually, you never want to deviate, especially in a meeting or an interaction, a phone call. Maybe you're speaking about Section 47 and you're very frustrated. And then that conversation just feels very off. So I think it's really, really important to reflect about the importance of reflection and journaling. It's not just about your personal development, it's about your practice. And sometimes especially emotions of anxiety. Maybe there's a dad and you just feel very anxious about confronting it. If you're able to kind of write that down, articulate it, and share it with someone, it actually means in the next visit you might actually obtain tools that help you approach that situation differently. So I've put here as well, identify areas of your practice that may be impacting certain emotions and be open with trusted professionals on how you can address this. And one of the key things that I'll say is time management. I think time management is really important in social work. There are so many different resources that are available that can help you manage your time. So I know a book that really helped me is Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And he has quite a good matrix in terms of many times we feel like things are urgent, but they're not urgent. They could be done later. So he gives a really good way of prioritizing different tasks, which I think is really important because in social work, everything is urgent, but realistically, it's not. And then another book that I would recommend is Deep Work, which is by Carl Newport, another personal development book as well that would really help you manage your time better. Um, and I've put here efficient time management is crucial in managing caseloads, preventing burnout, and ensuring the best quality practice for families. So I won't go into that too much, but I would really encourage you to really reflect about how you manage your time and what is stopping you from managing your time effectively. So the last key thing that I wanted to speak about is invest. I think one of the key things that I found that has really helped me as a person and the different hats that I play is investing in myself. I'm someone that's really big on courses, conferences, building on different relationships to make sure that I can gain the skills that are needed. So, you're worth every investment. You're worth attending that conference. You're worth, maybe it's just taking a retreat. I love staycations. I've gone to Bath, Horsley, Reading, just sitting down for 3 days just to reflect. So I really, really want to encourage you. You are worth it. And you're going to have to continue to remind yourself in your social work journey because there's just so many different competing demands that come up. Another thing that I would say is, enroll into educational courses that foster enthusiasm and, enable you to actually apply what you're learning in practice. So I always love learning. I'm starting a new course in October. So keep on learning, keep on building yourself, and you'll find that the more you learn, the more things you can actually apply to whatever you're experiencing. And a key thing that I've put here is consider therapy. And I think therapy has been really, really transformative for me. It's enabled me to identify patterns of burnout, especially some patterns actually due to trauma. And this is why I said that, yes, there's a bigger system and things do need to change. But there's so much within us that we can be curious about. And why do you always book annual leave late? Do you feel like it's because you're quite independent? Why do you struggle to ask for help? Is that because you feel like people haven't helped you in your childhood? And these are quite deep things, but you're a person and you're a human being, and I think it would be unfair to um, ask of you to be resilient without actually sharing that there are different things that do affect our resilience. And the only thing that I can share is, being open to work on it at a pace that works for you. So I can definitely say that, investing in therapy has been the best investment ever, not just as a social work, but as a sister, as a friend, as a daughter. And with social work, every aspect of our being impacts our practice. And like I said, I think we always encourage parents, speak to your GP, start therapy, engage in this. And I think it's fair for us to do the same. And I know that in with certain families where I feel safe enough to share that, they found it actually quite impactful to hear that, oh, actually, you do therapy. Maybe you do have something to change. Maybe we all have something to work on. So I really want to encourage you to explore that when you feel comfortable to do so, because I know it's different for everybody, and sometimes people don't always feel comfortable to actually seek out that help. Another thing that I'll say is join professional associations and networks to connect with other social workers and share your knowledge. So I know the fellowship at Frontline is a key way to kind of build relationships. And exactly what I'm doing is building my skill. I've never actually done this before. So this is a practical way of just showing how I'm investing in myself. I'm improving my public speaking skills. I'm understanding how Frontline work more. So I would really encourage you to be really curious about how you can join different professional associations. Actually, a lot of local authorities pay. So I know research and practice was something that was paid for by Lambeth, where you could actually get resources in and actually see what's going on. And I think research and practice is actually quite dynamic. I think they actually have a few mini courses as well. Community care, so you can get emails coming in. I think, yeah, there's some person that comes to mind, but I can't remember his full name, so I'm not going to try and butcher it. But he does a lot of self-care emails on how we can kind of manage our time better. So I think it's just taking time in Google just to think about what skills do you want to build, and what professional associations do you want to be a part of. One thing that I really love is watching podcasts. I think there's, oh, I can't remember his name. I think it's Social Work Matters, whereby they break down different things. They interview different people. They interview social workers. TikTok has a lot of different social workers who kind of vent, but also share the realities of social work. So these are different things that can help you. And I'll say just be really intentional about it, because these things don't just happen. Sometimes you need to come out of your comfort zone and build these relationships, but they do work. And I have an array of social workers who I just call and I'm like, can you imagine what this person just said to me? And, they just listen to me, they hear me vent, and then they kind of give me advice and I feel contained. But every relationship takes investment. So invest in your relationships. Even if you're an introvert, I feel like I'm a bit of an introvert. So put in your calendar, every 2 weeks you're going to call someone, arrange catch-ups in advance. I know sometimes our calendars can be so busy. So actually, why not just take um, every month out, every Friday evening, you're going to go out with someone. So just be really intentional about these things, because these things don't just happen. And then another thing that I'll say is invest in creative ways that enable you to express your emotions. I love traveling. I love speaking. I love church. Church is a key part of me, just expressing everything that's in me and getting it out. So find what works for you and be consistent. And there will be times where things do pop up, but just keep on working at it. Make a system and a routine that pours into you. So I'm rounding up. And one of the key things, key people that I really like, and it goes back to the beginning, having a vision of what type of social worker you want to be. Brene Brown is someone who I really look up to. I think someone who I find very accessible. When I found out she was a social worker, I was so, so, so happy and so excited. And one of the key quotes that I have here, it says, daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. And I think one of the things that I have learned to accept is I will disappoint people. I will have to say no. I won't always meet demands. I will need help. And that's okay. There's no guilt in putting yourself first. And I do think this is a process and a journey that we'll all have to kind of travel on. Setting boundaries is hard, but I think it's something that we'll have to come. And the more we love ourselves and we appreciate our weaknesses, the things we don't do right, maybe your stats aren't always perfect, but it doesn't mean you're not lovable. It doesn't mean you're not a good social worker. It doesn't mean you're in the wrong profession. So this is something that I really wanted to share. And then my final quote for me is, don't let a day go by without acknowledging that you are worth it, that you're worthy of rest, you're worthy of setting boundaries, and you're worthy of every investment that enables you to become a better version of yourself. The system we live in means that, people aren't always going to kind of tell you this. So you need to tell yourself this. And maybe you will get thank yous from parents and families, but I would say it's important you believe it and you tell yourself that. And it gets to a point where that's enough. And, that kind of mentality enables you to prioritize everything that is important to you so you can become an amazing social worker. So that's, the end of my presentation. I hope you can take away one or two things that can really help your well-being and your practice overall. So that's it from me.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for your presentation.